大家好，今天加密币市场变动不大，是处在小幅的回调的态势。那么我们今天把时间都集中在分析黄金，是由市衡市场策略首席专家施耐德女士为我们分析黄金目前的市况，和提出一些如何因出现盘整时的心理状态以及投资策略。
Well, yeah, I mean, certainly the geopolitical factors are a factor. And if President Trump is successful in brokering a deal in the Middle East, getting the hostages released back to Israel, and that calms down, I think it's just a small piece of everything. To me, the biggest story that I'm reading about gold right now, other than what we just talked about, which is, of course, increasing debt, is China. China has been accumulating gold for 10 years. And now they're very busy trying to woo other nations to store their gold in China's bonded warehouses and then trade in the Shanghai Exchange. So essentially, China's been really busy trying to reduce their activity in US-centric instruments and really bring more money into China. And gold has been a vehicle for them. I don't see any reason why that's going to stop anytime soon. So in terms of the geopolitical, I think the biggest issue for gold, and I wouldn't say an issue, but I would just say that the biggest reasons why gold might stop its ascent is if China and the United States kind of figure out how to play nice. And so far, there's been a lot of talk, but nothing solid while this is going on with China trying to woo these other nations. So that's a very bullish factor. Dollar actually has been strengthening a little bit, and it didn't quite have the breakdown that people anticipated. But that's if you're just looking at the dollar in terms of the dollar for its own sake. But if you look at the dollar debasement versus gold, it's down 50% compared to the price of gold. The debasement factor is actually a real thing. So another big question outside of China and that whole situation we just talked about with accumulation and wooing other nations to accumulate and put their money in China, we also have the concern about fiat currency. And we're in general, and we're looking, of course, at this where cryptocurrency comes in. So even though Bitcoin has not performed as well as gold, at this point, that's been bullish for gold. We might see a little bit more money coming into cryptocurrencies because of the lack of faith in governments. And it's been really kind of an interesting thing anyway to watch TradFi versus DeFi really evolve. Last time we talked about tokenization, that's still going on. Digitization, that's still going on. So, yeah, I mean, at this point, I'd have to see peace break out, the dollar get strong, faith be put back in all different types of governments. We start to really work down our debt, and interest rates at this point not really go down that much further, kind of stabilize here where they're at. And then maybe we can start talking about some kind of a significant sell-off in the metals. That tokenization would give people who don't have access to buy gold, right now the margins in gold, by the way, are really high, with silver as well, a way to own a piece of gold through tokenization. But we talked about this, we're still, I think, in the United States in the infancy stages, and it's going to be where the tokenization is focused. Is it going to, we all know it's going to be on some kind of hard assets, but are the hard assets going to be bits of companies, like buying little tokenized versions of stocks? Is it going to be in real estate? We don't really know. Gold will maybe a part of it, but it's really going to be a matter of where this all gets shifted in the US right now. That's a big unknown, and it's, like I said, it's something to keep an eye on. I think I had mentioned last time that I was really keen on silver, maybe even more than gold, because of the ratio, the gold to silver ratio. And I said that if it broke down under 85 at that time, that would favor silver. And we saw silver go to $50 an ounce. However, we're getting, again, as we're speaking, some kind of a correction from there. So I went and did a little look-see at the ratio before we talked today. And what's so interesting is that silver now, the gold to silver ratio is under 80. 80 is usually a very big point. And that generally continues to favor silver. However, when you go back to 2024, we actually were here once before. So we're getting not only, I think, selling because of the dollar going up and possibly of the peace agreement and, maybe some technical reasons as well, a little bit of a blow off. People are taking some profit, but also that silver to gold ratio right now is at support. So again, that's another thing to watch. If we start to see the gold to silver ratio break down under 79, then we are really, really looking at not only a good future for gold, but maybe silver takes out that $50 and goes up to, let's say, $70 next. So there's a lot of reasons to keep an eye on it. I don't know if I would necessarily want to jump in like today if you aren't already long. And silver can get really exciting. So can gold, but silver even more so. And we know silver is an industrial metal. That's another thing. We know the silver miners have done a lot better than the gold miners because there's going to need a need for production of more silver because it's big in AI and data centers. It's a conduit, etc. So I would say that you want to look at gold as more of that store of value, that safety play, that flight to risk when things are not looking that great. And you want to look at silver when you're looking more at an economic recovery or an inflationary environment. And that's how you want to look at the two. It would be very hard for silver to go up and gold to fall down. I haven't seen too much of that. But what we could see is that ratio shift. So like I said, if we see that ratio break down under 79, then I think you might see gold consolidate potentially and silver continue to fly. And that's kind of how carefully you have to watch it right now. Essentially, again, I always like to say I'm an active trader. So for me, when you get a major profit, like we've seen in gold or silver, it's always good to take some profit. And the other part of that answer would be, it depends on where you're long from. If you just got in at 39.50, you probably not only wanted to take some profit if we break down back under 4,000, but you might want to have a no loss stop in there as well, so you don't turn a winner into a loser, and then wait for some kind of dip. So how do we know what a dip looks like? Is it a dip or is it the end of the move? And that's really where you have to look at major moving averages to see if we find support. You have to look at volume. Are we seeing a distribution of volume in that people are really massively selling with no buyers coming in? It's complicated, but the overall sentiment to me would be, it's okay to take some profit up here and wait for a dip, but you really have to determine what that dip is. And then, of course, the other last thing to say about that is if you're going to buy more on a dip, let's say gold gets to 3,800, I would be a buyer there, but I would definitely want to protect the profits that I've made, the spectacular profits I've made in gold with some kind of a stop loss, just in case the dip continues.
以上就是今天的节目内容，谢谢您的收看。